This is a CBS 6 special presentation.
On this, the anniversary of one of our country's greatest tragedies, we bring you a special edition of Home from War, a series of stories about the men and women who've served our country following 9/11. Several of those service members live right here in Central Virginia, and they're sharing their stories with us. Tonight, we share them with you. We begin with the story of marriage. When a man and woman say, "I do," they promise to stick together through good times and bad. Tonight, you'll meet a couple separated by war, but whose strong bond is helping them overcome enormous odds.
We actually only dated 2 weeks and got married.
Brian and Angie Pierce knew from the very beginning.
When I found Angie, I found my best friend, and I married her.
They were to spend the rest of their lives together.
I was just lucky enough that she said yes.
15 years and 2 children later,
My life wouldn't be complete without Brian.
their bond could not grow stronger. It's a love cemented in war.
I don't know. I can't explain it. There was just that gut feeling. I just didn't have a good feeling about him deploying.
As part of the U.S. Army's 172nd Stryker Brigade, Sergeant Brian Pierce
When we got to Missoula, it was a mess.
fought through some of the most dangerous places on Earth.
It was just a devil of a town.
Brian and his fellow soldiers battle Iraqi insurgents day and night.
When we got to Solder City, every time the truck rolled out of the wire, they were getting in a firefight.
A hornet's nest with deadly consequences.
We lost a lot of soldiers.
The brigade's other mission? Deliver humanitarian aid to those suffering under Saddam Hussein.
We brought in gas and water and electric to these villages.
But close calls were mounting for Brian.
I had a sniper shoot at me in Iraq,
A bullet misses him by mere inches.
and he hit the window glass right beside my head. And that one made my heart beat a little bit faster.
Brian's luck, though, eventually runs out.
I can see the convoy just as clear to bell.
On the morning of October 20th, 2006, Brian's life changes forever.
I remember seeing the flash, a real nasty fireball. To me, it felt like a monster had the Humvee and was just slamming it up and down on the road.
37 pieces of shrapnel pierced the truck.
It seemed like the world caved in.
Part of that IED slices into Brian's brain.
When they found me, I was clinically dead.
Brian is evacuated, holding on by a thread. A commanding officer calls Angie thousands of miles away.
So the first thing I said to him, "What's wrong with Brian?"
Operation Iraqi Freedom ends for Brian,
I didn't feel any pain.
but his personal battle for survival is just beginning.
Traumatic brain injury.
Brian faced weeks, months, and years of surgeries and rehabilitation at McGuire Veterans Hospital.
She has pushed me, and she continues to push me. She is my biggest advocate.
Very bumpy, a lot of ups and downs. Take 2 steps forward, take 5 back.
6 years removed from the attack, Brian's making great strides, but large hurdles remain. He struggles to find words
It's totally frustrating to me.
and is legally blind.
I'm a caregiver to him now.
I don't have any peripheral vision.
A challenge he and Angie are tackling together.
Angie has never left my side. Never.
There's a reason, and we may not understand it right now, but there was a reason that his life was spared.
Through thick and thin, in sickness and in health, a promise they made so many years ago.
He completes me, and I think I complete him, and we work through the good and the bad.
Everything's easier knowing she's beside me, knowing that she's there.
6 years after Brian's devastating battlefield wound, Brian and Angie are working with Families of the Wounded Fund based in Midlothian. The couple says they want to give back to the people who helped them so much in their time of need. We now introduce you to Jim O'Farrell, who spent nearly 30 years in the Army as a Ranger. After serving his country, he is now settling down in Churchill and is living a new life with a different band of brothers, going from the streets of Baghdad to sound checks in a recording studio. Jim O'Farrell couldn't be happier his days of touring are behind him.
I started off with listening to Gordon Lightfoot and Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Jim's journey as a professional musician did not include cheap motels, smoky clubs, and small towns.
For my earliest memories, I have a guitar in my hand.
His 2+ years on the road included stops in Fallujah, Ramadi, and Baghdad.
And we ran escort operations and gun truck patrols all over the entire country. We were everywhere.
Jim survived 2 harrowing year-long tours in Iraq in 2005 and 2008.
When an IED hits, it just suddenly blows up.
Each deployment.
And in order to be an effective leader, you can't say, go get them. You have to say, follow me.
Jim led dozens of young men, some just 18, into battle.
The nickname for a platoon sergeant is platoon daddy. And it's an affectionate term that they never say to your face.
Enormous pressure came with his job.
I always appreciated the fact that those were my troops, that they were somebody else's sons. Parents were entrusting their kids to me.
He used his instrument as an escape behind closed doors.
I was a platoon sergeant, so I couldn't let the guys see the platoon sergeant rocking out, just not the image they needed to see.
But that changed.
You'd feel the adrenaline just pour completely out.
He soon found himself offering guitar guidance following dangerous missions.
It was a very good relief. It was a good way to sort of break completely away and disengage mentally and emotionally from what was outside the wire.
I never said goodbye.
Jim's passion for music intensified on the battlefield. His experiences flowed onto paper.
I wrote this song while I was in Iraq on my second deployment.
With 28 years of military service behind him, Jim is embarking on a new mission.
Yeah, I guess I don't look like the Ranger. I look more like the hippie Woodstock guy than the Army Ranger now, and that's cool. I dig it.
Jim is now leading a new group, the Men of the Jim O'Farrell Band, or the J.O.B.
When we do a show, we don't take breaks.
No matter where his music career takes him, the days of his other tour dates will never fade.
I hope it always stays with me. It would be a shame to forget Iraq. I think it was a very important part of me.
I'm not alone.
Jim's song Messenger sat in the top 40 contemporary charts last spring. You can catch this former Army Ranger and his bandmates performing all across Virginia. For some, joining the military was defined by one tragic and terrifying event: the attacks on our country on September 11th, 2001. You'll meet one man prepared to lay down his life a second time for the love of country. But first, we meet a young woman who stands small next to her fellow soldiers, but towers with pride in her role helping the fallen. Her story coming up next. Welcome back. Many young women her age are just starting their first year on a college campus, or they're looking for a job. But the next young woman you'll meet is earning respect for tackling one of the biggest challenges in the United States Army.
I just got back. Maybe 2 weeks ago.
Specialist Jennifer Martinez missed a great deal while serving overseas.
Food, driving my car, things like that.
Jennifer is decompressing at Fort Lee after spending a long 6 months in a war zone.
This one was in Afghanistan, and my first one was in Iraq.
Her 5'1" frame had many questioning her ability in a theater of war.
Because I'm so small and short. Oh, you can lift that? Yes, I can lift that.
As a member of the 54th Quartermaster Company, this 20-year-old soldier was tasked with one of the toughest jobs in the military.
We have infantry people, special forces, who come in and say, I couldn't do the job you're doing. And I guess it just takes a special person. We basically process any soldiers and bring them home to their families with respect and honor.
Not just any soldier, but those who gave their lives serving their country.
Pictures is the hardest thing for me. Seeing pictures of the soldiers with their spouses and their children, that's probably the hardest.
It is Jennifer's job to handle the soldiers' remains and return them to Dover Air Force Base.
It's about not being attached. It's about not, for every remain or soldier, anything that we have, U.S. coalition, for whatever comes in, you do not get attached.
She also gathers, inventories, and packs the personal items of the fallen.
If they come to us with a ring, we want to make sure that they get back home with a ring. So we take the remain and we write down everything that they have on them, so that when they get home, the family has everything they need, so they can feel that that's their closure for them.
Her most challenging moment, the day when 14 soldiers passed through the morgue.
But when you see pictures of them in their driver's license, anything like that, you realize this was somebody. This was somebody that served and they got hurt. That's how I look at it.
Members of Mortuary Affairs have some of the highest percentages of PTSD in the military. Jennifer says she has the right mental and physical makeup for a most difficult mission.
If we didn't enjoy our job and if we had issues with what we're doing, we'd switch to another job.
Deployments for Mortuary Affairs last a half year. The bond she shares with her fellow soldiers remains strong.
When you get deployed with people for 6 months and you live close quarter, you become like a family.
Jennifer decided to become a medical examiner at an early age. Her parents quickly realized how serious she was.
They asked if I was sure that that was the career choice I wanted to make, and that since this was a wartime, that there was going to be things that I was going to see that weren't normal. And I told them that this is the job I want to do, and they supported me.
She doesn't know if she'll be deployed again, but Jennifer will be ready, knowing she can provide a small measure of comfort to families in mourning, a job she does with pride.
I can't even explain it. I don't know, because these people don't know who I am. But I was there in the final moments of their loved one. And it's a feeling you can't describe.
Specialist Jennifer Martinez enlisted when she was just 17 years old, but could not leave for Iraq until she was 18. Following her time in the military, she plans on returning to her home in Texas to start work in the medical examiner's office in Houston. In the days after the September 11th attacks, thousands of men and women felt compelled to join the U.S. military. He wanted to help in the search to find the people responsible for attacking New York's Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and Flight 93. Coming up, you'll meet one of these people who lives right here in Richmond when Home from War returns. Welcome back. The events of 9/11 would alter the course of history and the lives of countless Americans. Tonight, we introduce you to an area soldier who was inspired to join the military for a second time after 9/11. One of the darkest days in U.S. history.
My mindset is, I can't sit back and do nothing. I have to, at least do my part.
9/11 would forever change the life of Calvin Hines.
I made that conscious decision to join and just continue to fight.
The events of September 11th drove Calvin to the recruiting office yet again.
There's a lot of honor that you get out of serving.
During the first Gulf War, Calvin served on the open seas in the U.S. Navy.
I was in Iraq and the weather was, 130s.
Then, after the United States invaded Iraq, this former sailor
Here it is. It's coming. It's coming.
found himself in the middle of a windswept desert.
This is what we deal with all the time. This is it.
Battling Mother Nature as much as the enemy.
Iraq, I had several close calls.
Calvin's decision to sign up didn't sit too well with all of his loved ones.
I had a few of my family members that were angry. Why would you do something like this?
But Sergeant Hines would not be deterred, especially knowing the one person who matters most stands firmly behind him.
She supported me. She's supporting me to this day, and I don't think there's another wife like mine.
In March of 2011,
frustrating at first, knowing that I was leaving my family again.
Calvin marched off to Afghanistan with the 530th Combat Sustainment Battalion.
It kind of, got you apprehensive.
The unit's mission?
Roger, 2-4.
Supply the lifeblood of bullets and food to frontline soldiers.
The comfort of, having enough ammo, having enough fuel, having enough MREs or water to go out the gate. Those are necessities.
Another necessity, staying alive while in harm's way.
Every day we thought about it. You really don't take anything for granted. No time is taken for granted while you're over there.
Calvin calls the band of brothers and sisters very real.
Each time you get closer and closer to the soldiers that you deploy with.
A link that strengthens daily while serving nearly 7,000 miles away from home.
Lifelong friendships that you build. I wouldn't replace it with anything.
This is by far the worst sandstorm that I have seen since I've been here.
In January, the battalion's job in northern Afghanistan would end.
I did it to the best of my ability.
But Calvin could not exhale.
I didn't relax until I got in my bed, hugged my wife and, my kids, but it was a relief.
Sergeant Hines knows another deployment could be in his future, a responsibility he readily accepted on that dark day in September so many years ago.
I am proud to serve. If I had to do it again, I would.
Now that he is back at Fort Lee, Calvin often visits his wife of 21 years in North Carolina. He's also catching up on lost time with his son, 2 daughters, and grandson. Still to come, a lot of people work 2 jobs, one full-time, the other part-time. But chances are you don't have jobs like this guy. How he keeps those fighting for our country safe when Home from War returns. Welcome back. Did you ever have a side job working in retail or a restaurant to make a little extra cash? Did your part-time job send you to a war zone? One man from Henrico County never knows when he'll be sent into harm's way, and it's a job he signed up for.
I live in Verina. Daily commute's 25, 30 minutes.
Whether on the road or in his office.
Stays busy. It's a constant.
Matt Wheeler.
Hold on a second, gotta take a phone call. Hello?
Never leaves his mobile phone ringing for long.
You really gotta respect the phone call because you just don't know who's calling you from where.
Matt juggles 2 jobs, one full, the other part-time.
It's like taking one hat off and putting another one on.
Matt is the officer in charge at the Glen Allen Post Office.
This next 2 hours are gonna be pretty busy.
But it's his part-time job that often can be much more trying.
It was somewhere between 12 to 14 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Matt serves in the U.S. Naval Reserves.
Definitely an eye-opening experience.
Last summer, this citizen sailor received his marching orders from Uncle Sam.
Our plane's an all-weather plane, so it'll definitely rain, sleet, or snow, the plane's gonna go.
His mission? Maintain EA-6 Prowler jets in Bagram, Afghanistan.
Getting them up and running and getting them to get launched is always a challenge.
A pressure-packed job.
We look to perform without making any mistakes.
He and his fellow Star Warriors tackled night and day.
Every time the thing goes up, then 4 people's lives are in our hands to make sure that the maintenance we did and the check that we did on the aircraft is 100% accurate.
Close calls on the base came in the form of Taliban mortar attacks.
That would probably put some gray hairs on your head.
Especially in the days leading up to the 10th anniversary of 9/11.
As we got closer to that, I think that thought was on everybody's mind of what if, what's going to happen, what's going to happen.
Whether serving in the barren landscape of Afghanistan or on a carrier during the first Gulf War, Matt takes pride in serving his country.
Knowing that there was danger along the way, I was willing to do that.
Last November, Matt, the sailors, and the planes in his unit returned from Operation Enduring Freedom unscathed.
Because my part-time job is more intense than my full-time job.
These days, Matt is back coordinating the delivery of tens of thousands of pieces of mail.
It kind of goes hand in hand with both jobs. You adjust to change and just roll with it.
Matt doesn't know when or if he'll get another phone call sending him in harm's way.
I just focus on the job that I'm doing now because I can't get caught up with whether we're going to go or not go.
It's a part-time job he accepts with not one regret.
No. That's why I said I would do it again. If we have to go again, I'll be there.
Now, the military is a family affair for Matt. His brother and 2 cousins were also deployed to Afghanistan over the last decade. Matt's dedication to his part-time job is paying off. The U.S. Navy named him Tactical Support Wing Reserve Sailor of the Year in 2011. Still to come tonight, what is the most difficult part of going to war? The gunfire, the rough terrain, the sneak attacks, or perhaps something more innocent than that? The answer when we return. Welcome back. When men and women in uniform march off to war, ambushes, firefights, and IED attacks rank high on the list of threats. But some soldiers consider something else to be the hardest part of living in a war zone. Life on the military road can seem never-ending and filled with countless potholes.
We have been driving for 3 days nonstop.
Back up. For Chief James Wilburn,
I've been in the Army almost 15 years.
the most difficult part of any deployment is not enemy fire.
We had a few mortars come our way.
Or harsh conditions.
After, initial few months, you kind of get used to the environment.
The most trying part, the separation between him and his own tiny soldiers.
I got a 7- and 6-year-old daughter and 3-year-old son.
He's missed more birthdays and firsts he cares to remember.
Very difficult. It's not a day that goes by that don't wish, I would have been home playing with them.
Since 2003, James has been deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq a total of 4 times.
Afghanistan was the only place that made me miss Iraq.
He credits his soldier wife Tessa of 9 years with holding down the fort on the home front.
I would actually say during my periods of deployment, she's worked harder than I have.
James's 530th Combat Sustainment Battalion provides everything frontline soldiers need to survive and fight.
My first deployment, I slept through machine gun fire and mortar was going off every night.
It's an exhausting, round-the-clock, 7-day-a-week job.
Whenever you miss the boat on getting everybody the supplies that they need, there's lives that's involved.
James says in a theater of war,
they watch everything that we do.
The enemy doesn't punch a clock.
If you don't think about it, you become lackadaisical. You go through with your guard down, and that's when they hit you.
With his loved ones half a world away, James and his fellow troops leaned heavily on each other.
Well, the camaraderie it builds. You're both in an environment. You're both away from your kids. You're both away from your family. You're all you got.
In January, the 530th packed up, said goodbye to Afghanistan, and returned to Fort Lee, a deployment that seemed to last a lifetime.
I would wake up in the morning and I'd know that, hey, I'm alive, nothing hit me.
James doesn't think he'll return to war, but if he needs to go.
Proud to serve, love what I do. Wake up happy to do it every day.
These days, James is soaking up the small soldiers he's longed to see.
This time that will never be replaced, but sure spend every day that I can trying to make up for all the time that I have missed.
How far back are they?
Every service member knows no matter how distressing missions can be, eventually, that long military road will most always lead you home.
Euphoric. There's no greater bliss than to come back and see your wife and kids after a long deployment.
Well, Chief Wilburn returned to Fort Lee in January after a 10-month deployment. James says the unit will be stateside for the next 2 years. By that time, the U.S. should be pulled out of Afghanistan, so returning to war is very unlikely. Welcome back. A group of veterans is worried tonight that the organization that they've come to love and depend on could soon be gone forever. The situation at their American Legion post basically boils down to numbers. Too few new members are joining to replace the aging veterans who are passing away.
We're not in good shape.
A sign of crisis along Otterdale Road.
We need all the help we can get.
Behind these cinder block walls, veterans are fighting a losing battle.
So it's getting tougher and tougher.
American Legion Post 186, a fixture in Chesterfield since 1953.
I'm down here 2 to 3 times a week.
A place welcoming generations of soldiers and sailors from World War II, Korea, and Vietnam.
Oh, it's the camaraderie. It's I don't think you can get this camaraderie anywhere else.
But these days, the ranks attending morning coffee are thinning.
We need some new blood to help some of us out.
The reason?
As the post gets older, we're losing more members.
Members of the nonprofit American Legion donate time and money to the VA and Boys and Girls State.
The case is we're here to help the community and give back.
But unlike veterans from past generations, the Iraq and Afghanistan veterans aren't joining, leaving a future of uncertainty.
Consequently, I'm sorry. It's a desperate need. Sorry.
In the last 10 years, American Legion membership nationwide has dwindled from 2,700,000 in 2001 to 2,400,000 last year. The challenges facing the veterans are not exclusive to Post 186. 6 years ago, there were 15,000 posts all across the nation. Today, that number has dropped by 500.
You're trying to get new members constantly, and you're trying to stem the tide of those that have passed on.
Swimming in a sea of red ink, the 400-member Post 186 will remain open for now. Members are not giving up without a fight.
There's always hope, and there's things we can do to help increase that hope.
Members of Post 186 say their doors are always open to veterans returning from Afghanistan or Iraq, where they can find a place to talk and share their experiences. The next big fundraiser at Post 186 is the Oktoberfest celebration on September 29th. Here's a question. Could you keep your cool while surrounded by gunfire? Tonight, you'll meet a special U.S. Marine who made it his job to fly into the danger zone to keep his fellow Marines safe. That story still ahead on Home from War. Welcome back. Flying a helicopter or a plane, for pilots in the cockpit, there's a lot of pressure to take off and land safely, especially when there's turbulence or bad weather. But what happens when you factor in an enemy trying to shoot you down? As we wrap up tonight's special, meet a U.S. Marine whose job is to fly his passengers into danger on a daily basis.
A lot of the local people here, when they talk about Freedom Farm, they know that it's my farm.
When it comes to finding serenity,
you boys want to watch the fish?
Dolph Davis has hit the lottery.
Oh, look at all those fish.
There's no place he,
Jake, you want some of this?
and his best friends would rather be.
Oh, that's a big one.
Than his 35 acres
fishy, fishy.
of peace and quiet in Cartersville.
Come on, let's go. It's raining. You coming?
A little slice of heaven, worlds away.
We're gonna get wet, guys.
From the hell he saw and heard 200 feet below.
Started out 2004 through 2006 in Iraq.
Lieutenant Colonel Davis flies assault choppers for the United States Marines.
We did get shot at, and we got shot at on a regular basis.
During his 2 tours.
It's Sunday morning, February the 27th.
Dolph would carry fellow Marines straight into the danger zone, maneuvering through sandstorms, heat-seeking missiles, and a hail of bullets.
You take off around 9 o'clock in the evening, and you normally return about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Never knowing if the next mission would be his last.
It's one of those hazards of the job, and it's a known hazard, and it's just something that I guess we deal with.
With 23 years in the military,
a couple of the aircraft got hit 1 or 2 times.
This veteran pilot stopped counting how many brushes with disaster lie under his belt.
The thing about flying a helicopter, people have joked about, it's not if something's going to happen, it's when something's going to happen.
With the help of night vision goggles, Dolph would land on rooftops in enemy territory in the dead of night.
When it's going on, it's all business. And it goes from the guys getting on the helicopter to the guys in the back manning the guns to the pilots up front.
He and his fellow pilots never leave a fellow Marine behind.
If there's someone that needs the help, you're not even going to think twice about it.
Flying into harm's way can be exhilarating yet taxing.
I'm an adrenaline junkie, but I can only take so much before I've got to come back and get my feet on earth.
Dolph is considered one of the most senior men in the squadron, and not because of his rank.
We're the wild goose, that's the squadron. Well, over there they called us the gray geese, okay? Because of all the old guys. We'll be going out today around 2:30 in the afternoon, 14:30.
At 52, Dolph says younger pilots may enjoy sharper reflexes, but lack something just as vital.
As far as the age thing, yeah, the eyes are a little bit tireder, the hair's gone, there's a little bit more weight, but you can't say enough for experience.
Dolph doesn't know if his next set of orders include the skies over Afghanistan.
Do I want to go? No. You know, I'm happy here. But would I go? Shoot, yeah. I mean, that's your job.
Meanwhile,
I know.
Dolph and his dogs
Are you fast?
are cherishing their time
Let's go.
with paws on the ground.
As far as the ride, wouldn't have it any other way.
He's flown through hell,
I'm so blessed to do what I do.
but he's finally finding
Come on, bud.
his runway to freedom. Farm.
You're crazy.